How can leaders who teach love, kindness, and humility sometimes make choices that cause pain, fear, and deep division? How can people trusted to guide faith lose sight of the very lessons they are meant to protect? These questions have appeared again and again throughout history when church leaders made decisions that harmed others. This essay does not attack Christianity or faith itself. Instead, it explores how human weakness, power, and politics have sometimes pushed religious leaders away from the values they were supposed to uphold. Faith has always played a powerful role in people's lives. For millions around the world, it offers hope, comfort, purpose, and moral guidance. Christianity, at its heart, teaches love, forgiveness, humility, and care for others. Yet church leaders are still human. As churches grew larger and more influential, they gained wealth, land, and political power. Leaders were no longer only spiritual teachers. They became rulers, judges, and close partners to kings and governments. With this power came temptation, fear, and pride. History shows that when authority becomes more important than service, even faith leaders can make choices that cause great harm. One of the most well-known and damaging examples of controversial church leadership is the Crusades. Beginning in the Middle Ages, church leaders supported a series of wars aimed at taking control of lands considered holy. Believers were told these wars were God's will. Many were promised forgiveness of sins if they fought. Ordinary people believed they were serving a holy purpose. Instead, the result was widespread suffering. Entire cities were destroyed. Innocent people, including women and children, were killed. People of other faiths, and even fellow Christians, were treated as enemies. While the wars were presented as religious missions, historians agree that land, wealth, and political influence played a major role. The message of peace was replaced by violence driven by power. Another dark chapter in church history was the Inquisition. Church leaders created special courts to search for people accused of having incorrect beliefs. These courts used fear to control society. Accused individuals were often tortured until they confessed. Some were imprisoned for life or executed. In many cases, there was little evidence. Accusations could come from neighbors, rivals, or people seeking revenge. Instead of guiding people through teaching and patience, leaders relied on punishment to protect authority. This period shows what can happen when leaders choose control over compassion and fear over understanding. Conflict between church authority and new knowledge also led to harmful decisions. A famous example is the case of Galileo Galilei. Galileo supported the idea that the earth moves around the sun. At the time, many church leaders believed this idea threatened their authority and long-held teachings. Fearing loss of control, they forced Galileo to deny his findings. He spent the rest of his life under house arrest. Years later, the church admitted it was wrong. This decision was not truly about faith. It was about fear of change and the desire to protect power instead of seeking truth. Another controversial choice involved the sale of indulgences. In the 1500s, some church leaders allowed people to pay money to reduce punishment for sins. Forgiveness became something that could be bought instead of freely given. Many believers were shocked and angry. They felt faith was being turned into a business. This practice played a major role in starting the Protestant Reformation, which divided Christianity into different branches. What began as an effort to raise money ended up causing one of the largest splits in Christian history. Greed and corruption damaged trust and changed the church forever. In more recent history, church leadership has faced strong criticism for failing to protect vulnerable people. In cases of abuse, some leaders chose to protect the institution instead of the victims. Reports were ignored, hidden, or quietly moved aside. Victims were often silenced or discouraged from speaking out. These choices caused deep pain and long-lasting harm. Many people lost trust not only in church leaders, but in religious institutions as a whole. These actions were not teachings of Christianity. They were examples of fear, denial, and the desire to protect reputation and power at all costs. Church leaders have also made controversial decisions by supporting or remaining silent about injustice. At different times in history, some leaders defended slavery or used scripture to justify unfair treatment of certain groups. Others stayed silent when speaking out could have saved lives or changed systems. Looking back, many people ask how faith leaders could allow such suffering. Often, the answer lies in comfort, political pressure, and fear of upsetting powerful allies. Silence, in these moments, became a decision that caused real harm. Exclusion has been another painful result of flawed leadership. Throughout history, certain groups were pushed away based on race, gender, social class, or background. Instead of welcoming everyone, some leaders built walls. These decisions were often based on tradition, fear, or misunderstanding rather than love or equality. Over time, many believers felt rejected instead of supported. Some walked away from faith communities that were meant to offer safety and belonging. These divisions lasted for generations and weakened trust within the church. When we examine these moments together, clear patterns appear. Many controversial decisions were driven by fear of losing power, desire for control, political influence, pride, and resistance to change. Leaders worried about authority more than truth. They protected systems instead of people. These are not failures of faith itself. They are failures of human leadership. Even leaders who believe deeply can lose humility when authority becomes more important than service. History teaches an important lesson. Faith is not the same as leadership. Belief is not the same as authority. A flawed decision made by a leader does not mean the faith itself is broken. It means humans are imperfect. Understanding this difference allows believers to learn from the past without losing hope. It also helps people hold leaders accountable while protecting what faith truly represents. Despite these failures, many people continue to find peace, strength, and guidance in their faith. They focus on compassion instead of control, service instead of power, and love instead of fear. They study history honestly and use it as a guide for growth rather than denial. By learning from mistakes, believers can build faith communities that reflect kindness, justice, and humility. Church leaders have made serious mistakes throughout history. Some caused suffering. Some divided believers. Some wounds took generations to heal. Yet faith does not belong to leaders alone. It belongs to the people who live it every day through their actions, values, and care for others. When we separate spiritual teachings from human ego, the difference becomes clear. Belief can remain strong even when leadership fails. In the end, history reminds us of a simple but powerful truth. Faith can guide the heart, but humility must guide the leader. Remembering this helps protect belief while demanding better leadership, and helps future generations build a more compassionate and faithful path forward.